Rent is a subscription to poverty. Buy the house.
Says the man who got rich collecting other people's mortgage interest. The house isn't the problem. The buyer is, and the size of the house he chooses.
And nobody in this argument has yet mentioned the only question that actually decides it.
The most expensive decision of your life, and everyone from your parents to your barber has an opinion. Rent or buy? Tonight, what a mortgage really costs, why owners still end up wealthier, and the 4 tests that tell you which side of this you belong on. Welcome back to the Wealth Table. Positions, 20 seconds. Mr. Morgan, you're loudest. Go first.
Buy. Land is the oldest wealth on earth. Every rent payment builds a stranger's empire. Every mortgage payment builds yours. Kings owned land, peasants rented it, and in 4,000 years the arrangement hasn't changed, only the paperwork.
Wrong century, Morgan. A house locks you to one spot in an economy that rewards movement. The largest raise most people ever get requires changing cities. I'd rather own a machine that earns than a box that costs. A house doesn't pay you, you pay it. Taxes, repairs, interest, forever.
You're both selling certainty that doesn't exist. The honest answer is a question. How long are you staying? Under 5 years, buying is usually a trap dressed as an achievement. Over 10, renting quietly becomes the expensive choice. Time, gentlemen, time decides this, not pride.
And I'll add the sentence, your real estate agent won't. The house you can afford and the house the bank will lend you are 2 different houses. Buy the first one. People don't go broke buying homes. They go broke buying too much home.
Round 1. The sentence everyone's parents said. Rent is throwing money away. True or false?
False. Is food throwing money away? You bought something, a roof, a location, and a fire that's the landlord's problem. Rent is not zero. Rent is the price of shelter without risk.
Here's what the myth hides. When the furnace dies, the renter sleeps fine. When the roof leaks, the renter sleeps fine. The owner lies awake doing arithmetic. Renting isn't throwing money away. It's paying someone else to carry the risk.
And where does the renter's payment go? Into the landlord's pocket, covering his mortgage, his taxes, his repairs, plus his profit. You pay all the costs of ownership anyway. You simply pay them with a stranger's markup on top.
Not always, Morgan, and you know your ledgers better than that. In many expensive cities, rent is cheaper than the monthly cost of owning that same home. The landlord isn't profiting from the rent. He's betting on the price rising.
Yes, and I financed those gamblers, profitably.
So the honest version? Rent buys shelter and flexibility and builds no equity. Ownership builds equity and buys risk. Neither is waste. They are different purchases.
Round 2. The viewer buys a $300,000 home with a standard 30-year mortgage. What do they actually pay?
Now we come to my favorite subject. You don't buy a $300,000 house. You buy a loan. At typical rates, over 30 years, you'll hand the bank roughly the price of the house again in interest. Then property taxes, every year, forever, even after the mortgage dies. Then insurance. Then maintenance. The rule of thumb is about 1% of the home's value annually. New roof, new furnace, the pipe that bursts on a Sunday.
Tell them about the first years.
In the early years of a mortgage, most of your payment is interest, not principal. You feel like an owner. On paper, you're a well-dressed tenant, and the bank is your landlord. Equity builds slowly at first, then accelerates.
And add the costs no one calculates. The buying itself, closing costs, agent fees, moving, commonly several percent of the price, gone on day one, and more again when you sell. That is precisely why Franklin's 5-year rule exists. Sell too soon, and those fees eat every dollar the house gained.
So the practical arithmetic for anyone deciding this month: add mortgage, taxes, insurance, and 1% for maintenance. That number, not the mortgage payment alone, is what you compare against rent. Most people compare rent to the mortgage payment and wonder later why they feel poor.
So if ownership carries all that, why do the rich buy everything in sight?
Because of the most useful word in finance, leverage. You put down 10%, the bank funds the rest. When the price rises, you keep 100% of the gain. Name another arrangement where a bank hands an ordinary person a large sum to invest with. There isn't one.
And leverage swings both ways. Prices fall 10% and your entire down payment is gone. Ask 2008. Millions made Morgan's leveraged bet and lost the house and the savings.
They bought too much home. Rockefeller's sentence, not mine.
Which is why leverage isn't the real reason homeowners get wealthier. The real reason is duller. The mortgage is a bill. People pay bills. 30 years of forced automatic saving, that's the mechanism, not the house. The habit welded to the house.
There it is. The mortgage is discipline imposed from outside for people who struggle to impose it themselves.
A renter can build the same habit. Invest the difference every month, automatically.
Can, Henry. That word is carrying your entire argument.
And one more advantage the renter cannot replicate. A fixed mortgage payment stays fixed for 30 years while rents rise with inflation. That is the quiet victory of ownership, not the price of the house, but a housing cost that stops growing while wages don't.
Which brings the table to something that complicates both sides. Homeowners' average net worth is dramatically higher than renters, by multiples, not percentages. Mr. Ford, your reaction?
Selection bias. Wealthier people buy homes. The house didn't make them rich.
Partly true, and studies do try to control for it. But even then, owners tend to end up wealthier, largely because renters who intended to invest the difference mostly didn't. They spent it.
Then let me be precise about what that means, because it cuts my way too. It doesn't prove houses are good investments. As investments, they historically underperform the market. It proves forced saving beats intended saving. The house is a savings account with a roof, and its returns are mediocre. If a renter genuinely automates the difference, the arithmetic still favors him.
And that is the honest complication for the viewer. The right answer depends less on markets than on knowing which kind of person you are. Both paths work. Only one of them works without your cooperation.
With a caveat neither of you named. The forced saving argument fails completely if the payment is too large. An overbought house doesn't save you. It drains everything else and leaves you unable to invest at all.
The verdict. When does the viewer buy?
First, the time test. Staying under 5 years, rent, and feel no guilt. Transaction costs on both ends will likely exceed any appreciation. Around 5 to 7 years is where buying usually starts to win. Beyond 10, it wins comfortably. If your job, relationship, or city is uncertain, that uncertainty is worth more than equity.
Second, the size test. Total housing costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance, and 1% for maintenance, at or under roughly a third of take-home pay. If the house you love breaks that ceiling, buy a smaller one, and borrow less than the bank offers. Their maximum is calculated for their safety, not yours.
The survival test. Buying must not empty your reserve. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses after the down payment and closing costs, plus something set aside for the first repair, because there is always a first repair. A house with no cash behind it is not an asset. It's a hostage situation with a garden.
Fourth, the honesty test. And I can't believe I'm saying it. If you rent, automate your investing like a mortgage. Same day, same amount, non-negotiable, before you can see the money. Do that, and renting wins on arithmetic. If you know you won't, then buy the modest house and let the bank impose the discipline for you.
4 tests. A banker, an industrialist, an oilman, and a founding father, in agreement for once. Time, size, survival, honesty. Run those 4 before you run the mortgage calculator. Next time at the wealth table, the 6-figure question every family argues about. Is a college degree still worth what it costs?
Franklin has been insufferable about it all week.
I taught myself, gentlemen. It shows. In the good way.